And thank you for joining us again. Hope you've watched the intro to church development. This is actually us getting into the first course of this series, and that is the general must-haves for all leadership levels. If you don't have the document yet, please click on the link in the description below, or reach out to the person who sent you this video link and ask them for the PDF and have that in front of you. It will really help. The first thing I want us to see is just the 5 points that we will be covering. One is the purpose, goals, metrics, pruning, and mindfulness. These are 5 principles that we need to have in any ministry at any leadership level that we're working. So let's look at the first of these 5, and that's purpose. Your church must have a purpose or mission statement. I'm not talking about your beliefs statements. That's good to have that, but I'm talking about specifically why your ministry exists. You need to know that. Yeah, in the military, we call those mission statements. So I was part of the 8th Air Force. The 8th Air Force had a mission statement. Then below that, I was part of what was called a group, and there was a 1,000 person unit, and we had a mission statement. And our mission statement was different than the fighter wings, but it had to fit under 8th Air Force, and it had to fit under the AWACS, it had to fit under the bombers. Our mission was different from all of those. And you will find that in your ministries. Your church, your overall organization that is above you should have a purpose statement. Learn what that is. Learn what the mission is. And then make sure that your individual congregation and every ministry in your individual congregation or ministry work has a purpose statement that, when it is fulfilled, helps fulfill the purpose of the higher echelon congregation, if you will. By doing this, we make sure that we're all fitting into the kingdom's work. Each organization, each level of an organization will have different mission statements, but they all feed back in together to make sure that we're meeting the purpose of the church that has sent us into this work, or the district that has sent us into this work, or the denomination that has sent us into this work. And that denomination or that work or that higher level is making sure that their purpose statement is fitting the kingdom work. And if we're all doing this, we have specific targets that we're shooting for, specific principles that we want to complete, and it keeps us on track. So that's very important to know. And we will go into what those purpose statements might be later. When we meet in person, I'll help you develop those. You can certainly reach out to me. The second thing in this is goals. A church, a congregation, a district of churches, whatever level it is, there needs to be goals. How do we fulfill this purpose? So if your purpose in your ministry maybe is somehow ministering to the homeless in their actual physical needs, and what do they need for clothing, what do they need for food, what do they need for shelter, you want to set goals. You don't want to just go out and happily be working and scattering seed. You want to be looking for a specific aspect that you're meeting of their needs. So after your end of a week's work or month's work or year work or whatever, is there a target that you're shooting for? If not, you might be very busy, but it's a lot of times random busyness. And we need to separate random busyness from focused busyness. Now, God will often redirect both sets of tracks. God will take us on paths that we didn't expect or we weren't prepared for in our minds, but He had prepared us for in different ways. And it's important that we understand the goals so we can adjust as we go along. So you will learn how to, when you come to the seminars, make goals for what your ministry is. And we'll talk about those individually in person. But begin to think about that. What goals are there in your ministry that you're reaching forward in order to fulfill your purpose? The third aspect on this, and the last one that we'll discuss in this section or in this video, is metrics. Now, metrics are simply a way of measuring whether we are accomplishing and actually reaching our goals. If our goal is the highest score in a basketball game, well, the metric would be how many points have we scored, and how does that relate to the other team? Metrics aren't always easy, but they're necessary. we aren't number oriented, but we need to be number aware. So, for example, if you have a congregation whose purpose is general worship service opportunities for your community, and in the last 10 years, your community has grown in population by 50%, but your church worship attendance has declined by 20%, and I see this across the world, then measuring what your congregation is doing as opposed to what the community is growing, what your percentages ought to be, lets you know you're missing somewhere. And so by having those simple metrics in the way that you measure, if your ministry is to reach the families where parents are working and they need child care, so your church is opened up to provide after-school child care, and that's your way of welcoming people into your congregation, then you can see a metric would be, how many children do you have attending? How many parents are there with children that are close enough to your church to engage in that? And they can't. So you would know this year after year. Are you holding your numbers? Are you growing your numbers? Is it declining? Are you investing enough people and time and money in what is working? Or are you investing it all in things that aren't working? So having some of these metrics in place are very important. A lot of times we gather this information, but we don't really sit down and examine why those numbers are what they are. So we'll talk about that. Thank you for listening to me. I know this is just kind of throwing information at you. All of this will become clear in the seminars. This is just your introduction to the types of things we will be talking about. Write down any questions that you have so when we meet face to face, we can make the most use of our time without going over all this again. Take care. Hope to see you in the next video very soon. God bless.